All right, guys, let's talk about some strategies for solving. In the last video, we talked about rewriting equations. So our first example is going to be how could we rewrite this equation to allow us to solve it? And the obvious first step, of course, is to subtract the 2000 because we know that anytime we see a quadratic, we want to write it as equal to 0. This now allows us to either factor the quadratic or use our quadratic formula. But one thing I noticed is that these large numbers are going to make both of our calculations difficult. I also notice that 100 is a factor of all of these terms, x squared plus x and minus 20, which means I can actually write this as 100 times x squared plus x minus 20 equals 0. And the zero product property says that if I multiply two things together and they equal 0, one of them must equal 0. But since 100 doesn't equal 0, this tells me that x squared plus x minus 20 is equal to 0. And that is a very easy quadratic to solve, whether you use factoring or the quadratic formula. All right, let's look at another one. Fractions. Fractions are horrible. Fractions are awkward. Turning them into decimals doesn't help because these are going to be irrationals. 0.3 repeating. We can't solve that. But what we can do is multiply the whole equation by a denominator to bust out those fractions. So I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 3, one of the denominators. Now, I'm going to be very specific here. Everything gets multiplied by 3. Why am I being so specific? Because I see this mistake all the time. 3 times 1/3 x squared plus 3 times x over 2 minus 3 times 1/3 equals 3 times 0. 3 times 1/3, that reduces. I'm left with x squared. 3 times x over 2 does not reduce. If I think about that as 3 over 1, I've now got 3x over 2 minus 3 times 1/3, that reduces, and 3 times 0 is 0. And I'm going to do it again. And this time I'm going to multiply the whole thing by the remaining denominator. Again, everything is going to get multiplied. So I've got 2x squared plus 2 times 3x over 2 minus 2 times 1 equals 2 times 0, leaving me with 2x squared. That reduces, plus 3x minus 2 equals 0. Easily solvable by either factoring or quadratic formula. Again, I'm assuming you know how to do that, so we're not going to take that next step. All right, moving on to the next example. Again, I've got fractions. I'm going to fraction bust this again, but my denominators are just a little more complicated. My denominators are x and x minus 1. So I'm just going to choose one to start. Doesn't really matter. I will start with multiply the whole thing by x. X times x minus 3 over x plus x times 2 over x minus 1 equals x times 5 minus x over x. Notice that this reduces and this reduces, but this does not. So I am left with x minus 3 plus 2x over x minus 1. Think about that as x over 1 times 2 over x minus 1 equals 5 minus x. My next fraction, x minus 1. Guys, I'm going to put this in parentheses. Be careful here. I see a lot of mistakes. This is a thing being multiplied by x minus 1, and this is a thing being multiplied by x minus 1. And what do I have? X minus 1 times x minus 3 plus x minus 1 times 2x over x minus 1 equals x minus 1 times 5 minus x. This reduces, and now I can multiply out these quadratics, x squared minus x minus 3x plus 3 plus 2x, because that's all I'm left with here, equals, and then multiplying this out, I've got negative x squared. Let's see, 5x plus x is plus 6x and minus 5. And now I can collect like terms, and I get 2x squared minus 10x plus 2x, which is going to give me minus 8x, plus 3, add 5 to both sides, plus 8 equals 0. And again, notice that I could factor out a 2 and rewrite this. This could be 2 times x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 0. And now all I have to do is find out when this quadratic, solve that quadratic equal to 0. Okay, I'm going to stop this video and come back and do one slightly more complicated example, but I want to keep these videos short. So I'll be back with the next video.